Hello, you are most welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Real Impartation Moment on Tuesday Night Anatomy with Daniel Okwan. Today's section, I quickly run with you the cranial nerve nuclei and columns. My friends, one thing that we know about cranial nerves is that we have 12 pairs of cranial nerves. And one thing is that out of these 12 pairs of cranial nerves, cranial nerve 1 and 2, because they are derived from, of course, telencephalon and, of course, diencephalon, respectively, my friends, they are not really true cranial nerves, okay, because they are not peripheral, so to speak. We consider them to be part of the central nervous system only, okay. And one other thing is that they do not have nuclei. Now, the remaining cranial nerves, that's from cranial nerve 3 all the way to the 12th cranial nerve, they have nuclei. And my friend, the singular form of nuclei is nucleus, simply the collection of cell bodies in the CNS. And my friends, whenever we talk about collection of cell bodies, then we are interested in telling you that yes, it is exclusively, made up of gray matter. Okay, so that is one thing that we should find. My friends, one thing that we also know is that when I talk about in a particular area, if the cranial, the arrangement of these cranial nerve nuclei in a vertical column, yes, or in a vertical, direction, linearly, or form what we call column. So my friends, at the end of this section, we should be able to really explain all the cranial nerve, columns that we have, and we should be able to put the nuclei at the respective areas that we are supposed to have. Sometimes I find students that they tend to cram some of these things. No, you don't need to cram them. And so I want you to really understand, sit down, and of course, go through this one with me. So my friends, at the end of this section, you should be able to tell the complete story regarding the concept of cranial nerve nuclei and columns. And so, without much ado, let's set the ball rolling. My friends, there we are. Now, one thing that we have to know is that if we talk about cranial nerve nuclei and columns, okay, the columns, we are going to have 7 columns. And my friend, that's one thing that I want you to know. We are going to have 7 columns. Now, out of these 7 columns, we have 3 in the efferent group, okay, 3 in the motor group, and then, of course, 3 in the sensory group, which we also call it the afferent group. My friends, just to introduce you a bit so that I'm going to go through this nitty-gritty with you, the first thing that I want you to know is what we call the general somatic efferent. General somatic efferent. I'll show you how the neural tube opens up so that it accommodates the fourth ventricle. So at the end of the day, from medial to lateral, we get these ones. So the first column that we are going to find, which is in the efferent group, in the motor group, is known as GSE column, GSE. So the G, the first name, we are going to go from general, then the next one is somatic, and E is for efferent. And my friends, whenever you talk about GSE column, one thing I want you to know about them is that, yes, they are skeletal muscles, which we are going to derive them from somite. My friends, in the head and neck region, the skeletal muscles which are derived from somite, they are only 2. And my friends, we talk about the extraocular muscles, those ones which will be around the eyeball, and of course, we talk about the tongue muscles, the glossal muscles. Okay, but precisely if they ask you that which of them is coming from somite, my friends, I want you to go for, of course, the the glossal muscles. Okay, those muscles derived from the tongue, and those ones which will be coming from, of course, the somatomeres, yes, will be coming from the extraocular muscles, yes. But generally, yes, by and large, if you talk about general somatic efferent, then they are generally going to supply skeletal muscles derived from where? From somite. That's one thing I want you to know. Now, once I move from general, I have to go to special. So my friends, I'm moving away from the second one. I'm coming to the third one over here in the efferent group, which is special visceral efferent. So now I've moved from general somatic efferent, which is the word somatic has to do with body wall. So that's why it's coming, it's a skeletal muscle, and it's derived from somite. But the second one I want to tell you is special. And it is what? It is visceral, and it is efferent. Special visceral efferent. That is SVE. My friends, whenever we talk about special visceral efferent, special viscera, think of pharyngeal arches. Think of bronchial arches. The one I've already done with you. Yes, those ones we talk about. I've already told you that we have, actually in the beginning, we are having 6 pharyngeal arches, which of course the 5th one disappears, so that at the end of the day we have 5. of them being present. Those ones are pharyngeal arches. So I'm going to take you through them, and of course you know those muscles which will be in the pharyngeal arch. We talk about mainly pharyngeal arch 1, for instance. Yes, will be supplying muscles of what we call the muscles of mastication. Yes, then pharyngeal arch 2 broadly we will supply muscles of facial expression. Okay, so this SVE, yes, for the first pharyngeal arch, that's supplying muscles of mastication. Second pharyngeal arch, muscles of facial expression. Third pharyngeal arch, of course, will be supplying, yes, of course, we talk about third pharyngeal arch, of course, the fourth pharyngeal arch, alongside the sixth pharyngeal arch. Yes, they will be supplying what we call the palate. They will be supplying the pharynx. They will be supplying also the larynx. So broadly, that is what we are going to see. I'll be taking you through all these ones. Now, once I move away from that, I told that this special pharyngeal visceral efferent, okay, we are calling it that it will be supplying muscles derived from, of course, the bronchial arch. And that is why it is not surprising that you will see in most books that instead of writing special visceral efferent, they will write bronchial efferent. It's the same thing that we are talking about here. Then the third one, yes, I move from medial to lateral. Okay, the third one will be general visceral efferent. This one is general visceral efferent. The first one was special visceral efferent. Now this one, the third one, is general visceral efferent. And my friend, this GVE that we find over here, yes, it will be supplying. Now remember, skeletal muscles, yes, of pharyngeal arches. The first one, which was general somatic efferent, was supplying skeletal muscles which were derived from somites and somatomeres. And of course, the special visceral efferent will be supplying muscles of pharyngeal arch, which are also skeletal muscles. So what is left in the head and neck region? My friends, what is left over there is that we have some smooth muscles also as well over there. And whenever you talk about smooth muscles, yes, in the head and neck region, my friends, think of what we call, sphincter pupilli. Think of, ciliaris muscle, for instance. Don't think about dilator pupilli, my friends. This, one you also learn that this is also known as the parasympathetic column. Okay, this general visceral, efferent, yes, we have written over here where is autonomic efferent. Precisely, it is parasympathetic column. And my friends, it's parasympathetic column, therefore it will be supplying, okay, sphincter pupilli, not dilator pupilli. Be careful, because in some questions you may see dilator pupilli. You don't go for that one, because dilatation of the pupil, yes, is by the courtesy of the sympathetic nervous system, and we've taken that one out. Okay, so the smooth muscles, sphincter pupilli or constrictor pupilli, and of course, the ciliaris muscle, as well as, of course, these glands that we find above there, the lacrimal gland. We talk about we talk about submandibular, sublingual, the parotid glands. We are going to explain all these ones for you. Okay, so that is one thing that we find. Now the second portion, which is in the afferent group. Okay, afferent is the sensory component. And my friends, in the afferent group, one thing I want you to know is that, yes, whenever you talk about the afferent group, it's just like the mirror image of the three efferent groups that we looked at. I'll show you in the next picture, so that once I ended with, of course, special visceral efferent, then the next one should be special visceral afferent. Okay, where is the one over here? As I move from medial to lateral, so it's supposed to be special visceral afferent over here. And my friends, whenever you talk about special viscera, the only thing that you should think about is taste. The sensation that will be carrying in this group will be taste. So someone will ask, yes, olfaction is special, yes, vision is special. So why is it that we've put only gustation in this area? Yes, if you look at the auditory pathway, it is also special. So why have you put only taste, which is gustation, only in this column? My friends, one thing that you should know is that, yes, gustation, yes, is special because it's derived from, of course, endoderm. The word viscera has to do with internal organ, which is derived from endoderm. That's the appropriate definition for viscera. So even if you are internal organ, you are derived from ectoderm or derived from, of course, mesoderm, you don't qualify to be viscera. So the trunk, okay, which of course will be, essential together with, of course, posterior, the anterior one, 2/3, posterior 1/3, even the epiglottis over there, the taste buds over there, the taste sensation which will be carried, yes, will be special. So that is gustatory, okay, gustatory sensation. But my friends, olfactory is also derived from endoderm, but the only thing is that olfactory nerve doesn't have a nucleus, okay, in the brainstem. I told you that olfactory, okay, nerve is an extension of the telencephalon, therefore it doesn't qualify to have, you know, a nucleus. So that is why, yes, whenever you think of special visceral afferent, my friends, think of only the sensation, the special sensation, which will be coming, okay, from, of course, the tongue, from the soft palate, from the epiglottis, okay, from the valleculae, from all those areas which are, relevant for, you know, detecting taste. Gustation only. But my friends, in case the question says what nerves, okay, are found under the column SVA, then my friend, one thing that you should go for is that you are not going for only the nerves which are relevant in gustation. Okay, so we talk about only the nerves which are important in gustation. We are talking about cranial nerve 7 by way of the chorda tympani. Okay, we talk about cranial nerve 9 by way of the glossopharyngeal nerve, even alongside cranial nerve 10. Okay, they will be, relevant in carrying this kind of taste sensation. But my friends, you shouldn't forget to add cranial nerve 1, which is the olfactory nerve, because the question said what nerve, we didn't say nucleus. Okay, so please get to understand these ones. Now, as I move from medial to lateral, then the next one that I'm going to look at now, it's just a mirror image. So we ended at the efferent group, special visceral efferent. So the next one will be, yes, will have to be this guy over here, which is of course the general, okay, visceral efferent, general visceral efferent. And my friends, this general visceral efferent that we find over here, no, it should be general somatic efferent that we find over here. So the next one should be general, visceral afferent. Okay, so that's the next one, general somatic afferent. Sorry, general somatic afferent. And my friends, whenever you talk about, no, supposed to be general visceral afferent, general visceral afferent. Okay, this one over here. So general visceral afferent is this one, which will be carrying, of course, all the general sensations from organs which are internal organs derived from endoderm. And so, for instance, a typical example that I want to give you is that, for instance, this special visceral afferent, gustation, let's say, for instance, the tongue. Now, sometimes if the tea is hot or the Milo that you've done is hot, then what will happen is that you may experience some kind of pain. The temperature will be experienced or will be felt, okay, by the tongue. That one is the viscera which is experiencing it, but it is not a special sensation. It is rather a general sensation. Then the next one, yes, will have to be general somatic afferent, okay, the general somatic afferent, which is this one. And my friends, the name is general somatic. It has to come from body wall, okay, and it's afferent. So those sensations will be coming through from the skin, from the skeletal muscle, from joints, even from the periosteum, from endosteum, yes, from perichondrium, what have you, of bones, yes, of cartilages, yes, they will all be traveling through, they will be carried by what you call the general somatic afferent column. Now, my friends, I told you something that this, efferent column that we find over here, that we have 3 efferent column, and the justification is that we have 3 kinds of muscles. One skeletal muscle from somites, and the skeletal muscle from, of course, the pharyngeal arch, and of course, we also have smooth muscles and glands. Okay, that's why we have 3. But in case of the afferent, we are having 4. And why are we saying 4? I told you that the first 3 is just like the mirror image of the efferent group. Then why is it that we are having, the 4th component? My friends, the 4th component is known as the SSA column, where is special somatic afferent. My friends, whenever you talk about special somatic afferent, my friends, the only one that I want you to think about is in the internal ear, the auditory pathway. And the ear is doing 2 important things in the inner ear. It is relevant for, of course, for hearing and of course for balancing. The ear is performing 2 main functions. One of them is for hearing and the other one is for balancing. My friends, so of course, the auditory and of course the vestibular, apparatus in, of course, the ear, that is what they are doing. By way of having these nuclei known as, of course, the vestibulocochlear nuclei will be present over there. So the vestibular nucleus alongside, of course, the cochlear nuclei, okay, will be present. But my friends, yes, we've seen that we've written retina 2 over here, which is of course also a derivative of what we call, something we call the neural tube. And my friends, if you know about the neural tube, one thing you know about it is that it is coming from what we call the neuroectoderm. So it is ectodermal. So because the neural tube is ectodermal, this retina, yes, and ectoderm is not, a visceral organ. Okay, it is coming from the body wall. But I told you that this, visual pathway, yes, there's no nucleus over there. So the cranial nerve 2, optic nerve, doesn't have a nucleus. And that is why this retina, unless the question says that which nerves are under the special somatic afferent column. And my friends, the nerves, then you have to go with cranial nerve 8, which is the vestibulocochlear nerve in the auditory pathway. Alongside, you got to go with cranial nerve 2, which is the optic nerve. Otherwise, if the question said cranial nerve nucleus will be under which column, then go with only vestibular nuclei alongside the cochlear nuclei. As simple as that. Okay, so please, that is just by the introduction. So quickly, let's go through these things that we have for you. So what are we talking about now, my friends? Whenever we look at something we call pharyngeal arches, why is it important that we begin with this pharyngeal arches after this few introduction that we're giving you? The reason is that I want you to know is that, yes, we have pharyngeal arch 1, arch 2, arch 3, arch 4, and arch 6. I told you that the fifth one disappeared and therefore is no longer there. And my friends, the first pharyngeal arch, the nerve that will be supplying it, yes, is of course the mandibular nerve, the third division of the trigeminal nerve. And my friends, the main muscle which this one will be supplying will be the muscles of mastication. And I don't need to tell you the muscles of mastication. Yes, we talk about, of course, the temporaris muscle, the master muscle, you know, the lateral, of course, medial pterygoid muscles. But alongside these muscles, we also have other ones. Okay, for instance, the mylohyoid, you know, talk about the anterior belly of the digastric muscle, you know, the two muscles with the name of tensor, by way of the tensor belli palatini, and of course the tensor tympani. But I'm not interested in all those, but broadly, for now, just know that, I mean, the first pharyngeal arch will be broadly supplying muscles of mastication alongside all these ones we've mentioned. Pharyngeal arch 2, yes, the nerve supplied to it is of course the facial nerve, and the facial nerve is a seventh cranial nerve. And one thing that we know about this, I mean, seventh cranial nerve, is that mainly it will be giving motor supply to muscles of facial expression. Yes, I mean, you know all those ones, but even alongside that, we also have even the stapedius, okay, the smallest muscle that we have in the human body in the ear. Yes, it was also supplied by, of course, this facial nerve. Yes, we talk about being the stylohyoid muscle. We talk about even the posterior belly of the digastric muscle, even the auricularis muscles, of course, that we find them, yes, which are, you know, vestigial, so to speak, in human beings. Whereas, of course, I mean, all these facial muscles like vaccinator, frontalis, you know, platysma, yes, all these ones have been taken care of. Yes, all these auricularis, I mean, oculi muscles, all these, I mean, what do you call it? Orbicularis, you know, oculi, alongside all other muscles that we know we've done already, which you can get the videos and of course watch these ones. Okay, all those ones will be supplied by, of course, the facial nerve. Yes, one other thing too is that for glossopharyngeal nerve, yes, this glossopharyngeal nerve is the only nerve which will be supplying this nerve over here, which is called the stylopharyngeal muscle. Okay, that is one thing that I want you to know. Then, I mean, pharyngeal arch 4, the nerve supply is the superior laryngeal nerve, which is a branch of the vagus nerve. I mean, that of the 6th, okay, the nerve is of course the recurrent, I mean, laryngeal nerve, which is also a branch of cranial nerve 10, which is of course the vagus nerve. So my friends, one thing that we find over here is that all these muscles over here, which muscles are we talking about? We are talking about muscles of the palate, muscles of the pharynx, and of course muscles of the larynx. So my friends, just get to know this broad presentation that I've given to you so that you understand. My friends, what muscles are we talking about over here? All these muscles are skeletal muscles. That is why we should have a separate efferent column, which is a motor column. We are talking about muscles, therefore they will be supplied by motor nerves. So a separate efferent column for this, I mean, muscles of, I mean, derived from the pharyngeal arches. Okay, so that is one thing that I want you to know. And then of course we should also have another separate muscle for muscles which are also skeletal, but this time right, they are derived from somites and somatomeres. And what are we talking about? I told you that those muscles are of course the glossal muscles, which of course they are the tongue muscles specifically derived from somites, and of course those ones derived from somatomeres, they are the extraocular muscles. Okay, so I'm sure you know about the medial rectus, lateral rectus, and what have you. Okay, they are those ones that I want you to actually know. Now, my friends, I also told you that there should be a third column because all these ones are skeletal muscles, and that's why the third column in, of course, the efferent group should be that supplying, of course, the smooth muscles and glands. My friends, this neural tube that we find over here, yes, this is the neural tube. I told you that the neural tube which will be giving rise to the, of course, the central nervous system. Okay, that is one important thing that you should know. So there's the neural tube. Now, this neural tube is having two components with the help of a sulcus, a primitive sulcus which is separating them, and this sulcus is what we have written over here, which is known as sulcus limitans. It is limiting or delimiting this neural tube into two areas. That portion where is ventral, okay, this portion is in front, so we say ventral, that's the anterior portion, and that's why we call this one the ventral plate. And this ventral plate is the basal plate, so to speak. I'll explain why. This is the basal plate, and that one will be motor. And then the opposite aspect where is dorsal, okay, will be of course that of the sensory plate. The reason is simple. If we should liken this to the spinal cord, now one thing that we know is that spinal cord, which of course emerging from the spinal cord, forming of course the spinal nerve, will be having what we call the root, okay, from the ventral aspect. And the ventral root, my friend, or the anterior root, yes, will be of course motor in nature, where of course the dorsal root, which will usually bear a ganglion, yes, will be of course sensory in nature. So if you think about it that way, then you should be able to understand these things. My friends, one thing that we know is that if this neural tube is giving rise to the central nervous system, then it will be having a central canal, okay, that one no problem. But in case this, I tell you that this same neural tube will be giving rise to the fourth ventricle, which we've looked at it. Please get those video links, and of course watch them. Okay, this guy is the fourth ventricle, which is in the brainstem. And my friends, once I have this fourth ventricle, then one thing is that the neural tube will have to open in such a way that yes, we should have this portion, which of course is in the basal region. Okay, the ventral portion is basal, will be drawn towards the midline. How of course the dorsal portion will be opened up so that it divides into two, so that at the end of the day we get the alar portion, which are the wings. So that at the end of the day we have the basal plate, which I told you it is motor, okay, and of course we have what you call the ventral plate. We have the alar plate, which will be sensory in nature. And so if you look at it this way, from medial to lateral, you can see that we are starting with somatic motor, then eventually we get to the visceral motor, then we begin with visceral sensory, okay, because there's visceral, then of course somatic sensory. That's how we'll be going in that direction. So at the end of the day, I told you that we are going to have 7 columns, 3 efferent columns, and then of course 4 afferent column. The first efferent column from medial to lateral, that's just one portion of it. From medial to lateral, this one is somatic efferent. And my friends, this full name will be GSE, General Somatic Efferent, that we find over here. Okay, so please try to understand what I'm trying to explain over here. General somatic efferent. The key word over here is somatic. That's why I've written somatic efferent over here. And my friends, whenever you talk about general somatic efferent, my friends, think about those skeletal muscles which are derived from somites and somatomeres. And what are these muscles? We are talking about the tongue muscles and of course the extraocular muscles. And my friends, whenever I talk about extraocular muscles, you know the nerves. So we should anticipate which nuclei, okay, should fall under this, column. Okay, so that's one thing we should know. Now, when we looked at, those extraocular muscles, the nerves that supply them, there are 3 nerves. And what are these 3 nerves? One of them, which is the third nerve, is the oculomotor nerve. So the third nerve should be under this column. The nuclei of the third nerve should be under this column. Then, of course, we talk about, the fourth nerve nucleus, which is of course the trochlear nerve. Then of course that of the abducens nerve nucleus will be present in this column. Alongside, I told you extraocular muscles. Sorry, I told you about the glossal muscles, the tongue muscles. They are supplied by of course the 12th cranial nerve, which is of course the hypoglossal nerve. Okay, so that's the first column from medial to lateral, where is motor. And of course the second column is SVE. And my friends, SVE, the key word that you should know about this one over here is the special visceral. Okay, so a special visceral is in the efferent group. And my friends, one thing I told you about special visceral is that special visceral is also supplying skeletal muscles. But what skeletal muscles are you talking about? They are skeletal muscles derived from, of course, the pharyngeal arches. Skeletal muscles derived from, of course, pharyngeal arches. That's why I told you that this special visceral, efferent column can also be called branchial efferent. Okay, that's an important thing that I want you to know. Then, of course, the third one, which I'm going to, is the GVE. And my friend, GVE is of course general visceral efferent, general visceral efferent column. And this column, yes, already the first 2 columns are taking care of the skeletal muscles. And so it means that this third column will have to take care of the smooth muscles alongside, of course, the glands. Okay, will be taken care of by this column. Okay, please try and understand these things that I'm trying to explain to you. Now, I told you that once I'm done with the efferent group, the lateral plate will be having, of course, the motor group, which, of course, surprisingly, it is having 7 columns. Sorry, it's having 4 columns. And my friends, it's just like a mirror image. Once you can get these ones, you don't need to cram it at all. Once you know GSE, you know SVE, and of course GVE, the opposite, okay, it's like the mirror image. So you start from radar, you're supposed to start this way, where is GVA, then I go to SVA, then I go to GSA. That's what is going to happen. And of course, you add the last one, which is known as SSA. That's the special somatic afferent. So the first one that we find here in the afferent column, in the sensory column, yes, is this guy over here, or in the other plate, is this first column that I have over here, which is GVA. And my friends, the GVA stands from general visceral afferent. Now, whenever you look at the afferent column, try and forget about the efferent column. Don't think it's the opposite. No, don't think there's some kind of relation with it. Treat them separately. So this one is general visceral efferent. The first one, which is general over here, is telling you that the sensation that this column will be carried, the nuclei in this column will be carried, will be general. And whenever we talk about general sensation, what are we talking about? Take taste away from it and take anything general sensation like touch, like pain, like temperature, like pressure, like stretching, like proprioception, okay, like the tension. Those represent what we call the general sensations coming, of course, from viscera. The key word is that it's coming from the viscera. And what did we say? We say viscera should be coming from, of course, the internal organs derived from, of course, endoderm. Okay, so that is one thing that I want you to know. Now the next one I have over here is SVA, and my friends, SVA is special visceral afferent. And whenever we talk about special visceral afferent, the first key word over here is the sensation that we are carrying is special. And I've told you that the only special sensation that you should keep in your mind is taste and only taste. Yes, although yes, we can say that olfaction is also a special sensation, because it's also coming from viscera, only that olfactory nerve doesn't have a nucleus. But this one, which is the special sensation for taste, yes, there are nuclei for the 7th nerve, nuclei for the 9th nerve, alongside nuclei for, of course, the 10th nerve. So that is, one thing I want you to know. Keep an eye on this one. Then the next one that we look at is what we call GSA, and GSA is general somatic afferent. General somatic afferent. Now, one thing I want you to know about in the head region over there is that as far as general sensations are concerned, the nerve which will be carrying these general sensations, the main thing I want you to know is the trigeminal nerve, the 5th cranial nerve, by way of course the olfactory nerve, okay, by way of the maxillary nerve, by way of the mandibular nerve. Yes, the olfactory, the trigeminal nerve, having all these 3 parts, yes, is the one that I want you to know, that to be carrying all these general sensations from the face, because the word is general somatic afferent, general sensations from the body wall. Okay, so please, that is one thing that I want you to know. So I'll explain, I'll keep an eye on this one, I'll explain it further. Then the next one is known as SSA. The last column that we find is known as SSA. And SSA over there means special somatic afferent. Normally, if something is supposed to be special, it's supposed to be, coming from, or to be carrying something from the viscera, from internal organ. But this one, the sensation is special, but it is not coming from viscera, it is coming from the body wall. And my friends, this one is the one that I told you that think about the vestibulocochlear nuclei under this column only. And vestibulocochlear nuclei, for instance, that's for the hearing and of course for balancing. But if they ask you of nerves, then don't think of only vestibulocochlear nerve, cranial nerve 8, but also think about cranial nerve 2, because even cranial nerve 2, yes, where is mainly for vision, the retina is derived from, of course, the neural tube, which is of course coming from the neuroectoderm. So it's ectodermal. That is why, yes, but the only thing is that it's not having a nucleus. Please try and of course understand these ones for us. So what have we seen so far? Now, one thing is that, yes, from medial to lateral, the first one is somatic efferent, general somatic efferent. Now, this I told you that these nerves which have nuclei, yes, they are in the brainstem. And my friends, whenever we talk about the brainstem, you know we are looking at the midbrain, we are looking at the pons, and then of course, we are also looking at the medulla oblongata. And so let's put it this way, so wherever you are, you can get this column down, and then the first one, try and write it from medial to lateral, just like we have it over here. So let's start with the efferent column. With the efferent column, the first one is general somatic efferent. Then you go to special visceral efferent. You want to look at the nuclei under these columns. And then the next one is, of course, the general visceral, efferent. So my friends, the first one, which is general somatic efferent in the midbrain. Now what did I tell you? I told you that, yes, for general visceral efferent, they will be supplying, extraocular muscles and the glossal muscles and the tongue muscles. And so that is why, yes, you should know that extraocular muscles, they are supplied by, yes, the third nerve, the fourth nerve, and the sixth nerve. But you should know which position of the midbrain, which part of the midbrain that we find these, nuclei, placed. So one thing that you should know is that for, the third nerve nuclei and that of the fourth, yes, they are found in, of course, the midbrain, in the midbrain only. And then for the pons, yes, the nucleus that we are going to find over there is for that of the sixth, nerve. Then, of course, if you look at the hypoglossal nerve nucleus, yes, a very long nucleus that we find over there in, of course, the medulla oblongata. So please try and understand these ones for us. So for instance, if there's any injury to the midbrain and it is confined to, let's say, the midbrain and the pons, it means that the medulla oblongata will be spared. Yes, the tongue muscles will work. Okay, so these are some of the dynamics that I want you to understand. Then the next one that we find, is what we call the general visceral efferent. General visceral efferent. The general visceral efferent, what did we say about them? We talked about the muscles, the skeletal muscles, which are, derived from, of course, the pharyngeal arches. And I told you that, yes, we have, of course, the the 5 pharyngeal arches, the ultimate ones, 5 pharyngeal arches. The 5th one disappeared, so we don't count it as part of it. Now, this one, I told you that the first pharyngeal arch will be supplied by, of course, the mandibular nerve, which is, of course, the cranial nerve 5, the part of the cranial nerve 5. So there's the mandibular nerve with the trigeminal nerve is in the pons. Now the 4th one is in the midbrain. 3rd and 4th is in the midbrain, but the 5th nucleus, is in the pons, just like the 6th nucleus. Even alongside the 7th nucleus, because my friends, the 7th one, yes, will also be the one supplying, of course, mainly the muscles of facial expression. But beyond that, we go to, of course, I told you that for the 4th pharyngeal arch, the nerve supply will be coming from, of course, the glossopharyngeal nerve, the 9th cranial nerve, the 10th nerve by way of the superior laryngeal nerve, and of course the recurrent laryngeal nerve supplying that of the 4th, and then of course the 6th respectively. Remember that the glossopharyngeal nerve will be supplying the 3rd pharyngeal arch. That's one thing you should know. But why is it that we also have the nucleus for, of course, the cranial accessory nerve also over here? The accessory nerve is also having its nucleus in this long nucleus that is having over here, and so this nucleus is taking care of the 9th nerve, the 10th, and as well as the 11th nerve. And that's why there's that kind of confusion, so we don't know which precisely it is supplying, and that's why it is very ambiguous, to find this nucleus, giving the name nucleus ambiguous. So that is one thing that we should find over here. Nucleus ambiguous. Now, why is it that we have this 11th cranial nerve over here? I will explain to you. This 11th nerve, does so many things. What are these? Together, these nerves supplying? They are supplying the muscles of the palate, muscles of the pharynx, and muscles of the larynx. But precisely one thing is that this cranial nerve 11 is actually supplying a lot of the muscles, which of course we think the vagus nerve is the one supplying, which forms actually the pharyngeal plexus. Now, what is happening is that usually I will explain that one to you as these nerves exit through the jugular foramen. Then what happens is the fibers of this 11th nerve, will join with that of the 10th nerve, and so as if it is supplying those nerves are supplied by the vagus nerve, but actually coming from, of course, this glossopharyngeal nerve. So I will explain that one to you. Then I go to the next one, which is the GVE column. The GVE column, which of course will be supplying smooth muscles and glands, because the first two were supplying, skeletal muscles. Skeletal muscles derived from somi, skeletal muscles derived from pharyngeal arches. Now the GVE column will be supplying smooth muscles and glands. And my friends, when I talk about smooth muscles and glands in the head region, my friends, we don't need to forget about these ones, which is of course the sphincter pupillary and the serratus muscle. So those of you who have watched the video that I've done on what we call the oculomotor nerve, alongside I told you that there was another nucleus which was also present in of course the midbrain, and that nucleus was Edinger-Westphal nucleus. Edinger-Westphal nucleus. And this Edinger-Westphal nucleus, yes, is also because part of the third nerve nucleus, yes, it's also in what we call the midbrain. And then of course you go to that of the superior salivatory nucleus and inferior salivatory nucleus. So there are two nuclei in this pons over here which will be supplying these kind of glands, and the superior salivatory nucleus, yes, will be supplying the what you call the submandibular gland and the sublingual gland, even alongside the lacrimal gland. So you might think the name is salivatory nucleus, superior salivatory nucleus, and therefore should be supplying salivary glands. It is not only supplying salivary glands, it's also supplying the lacrimal gland as well. But my friend, the inferior salivatory nucleus will be supplying, of course, that of the parotid gland. So my friends, those of you who have watched the video that I did on what we call these salivary glands, I told you that is how the supply happens. It's like it's inverted. Rather, the parotid gland, where is superior, okay, or it's a bit cranial to that of submandibular and sublingual, is rather supplied by inferior salivatory nucleus, okay, but those ones which are below are supplied by superior salivatory nucleus, okay, by way of the submandibular and sublingual glands alongside the lacrimal gland. But my friends, we don't need to look at that. Now one thing is that yes, this I will explain this one to you, but the superior salivatory nucleus, one thing is that it is supplying, okay, the lacrimal gland, and then of course the submandibular and sublingual gland via what nerve? Yeah, the main nerve is the facial nerve, the seventh cranial nerve. Then of course the parotid gland is supplied by of course the nucleus that we find over here, where is the inferior salivatory nucleus, yes, is by what nerve? Is by of course the glossopharyngeal nerve, which is of course the ninth cranial nerve. Okay, please try and understand these ones. Okay, but having seen that, there's also another nucleus, very huge nucleus that we find in the medulla oblongata. Okay, that nucleus is known as the dorsal motor nucleus of vagus. Please my friends, get to understand this. Dorsal motor nucleus. You got to tell us that this is motor nucleus because we are in the efferent group. So dorsal motor nucleus of the vagus. Okay, so that is one thing that we find. Yes, by way of talking about this motor nucleus of vagus, think about yes, below head and neck, in the thorax, in the abdomen, the glands over there. Okay, the smooth muscles over there will be taken care of by this dorsal motor nucleus of vagus. So now, having moved away from the efferent group, then we go to the afferent group. Now my friends, the afferent group, the first column that we are going to have will be called GVA, then the second column will be SVA. Now put both of them together. That's one thing that we find. There's one portion which this column, yes, we are joining these two columns together, okay, at one point. So we have GVA and SVA over here together. And my friends, there's no nucleus above, no nucleus below. There's a single nucleus in this, although there are two columns over here, and the single nucleus that we find is in only in the medulla oblongata, and that is why this nucleus is known as nucleus of tractus solitarius. Nucleus of tractus solitarius. A solitary tract, okay, a single tract, okay, so that's why we call it nucleus of tractus solitarius. And so we explain, yes, mainly there are 7th nerve, the 9th nerve, and the 10th nerve will be there. Now my friends, you can see that there's a color code over here. The cranial portion of this nucleus of tractus solitarius, okay, should be carrying what? Yes, it should be coming down. The first one is special visceral afferent. Okay, so this one over here, the cranial portion, is the special visceral afferent for tastes. Okay, yes, special visceral afferent for carrying the taste. And then the GVA is the general visceral afferent. General, sensations coming, of course, from the viscera, from the internal organs derived from endoderm. Okay, so that is what we find over here. Now, my friends, the next thing that I want you to know over here as we move on, yes, should be, of course, the next one, which is GSA, general somatic afferent. And this general somatic afferent, there's a very huge nucleus which we find it over there in this column, and that huge nucleus starts all the way from the midbrain, goes in the pons, and terminates in the medulla oblongata, and even goes beyond the medulla oblongata to the level of the second, cervical vertebrae. So it means that it even goes to the spinal cord, joins the spinal cord as well. This nucleus is known as the trigeminal nucleus. Why? The reason is that when I told you about the general somatic afferent of the face, I told that to be carried by, of course, the trigeminal nerve. Okay, so that's the nucleus for it. Okay, but this nucleus, yes, is having 3 parts because of where they are located. That portion which is in the midbrain, the midbrain can also be called mesencephalon, and that's why this portion of the trigeminal nerve nucleus is known as the mesencephalic nucleus. Then I go to the next one, which is also known as, of course, you see it bulges a bit, and that's why we call it the principal sensory nucleus, or the chief sensory, nucleus that we find over here. Then below that we have what we call because it joins the spinal cord, we also call the spinal nucleus of the trigeminal nerve nucleus. Okay, so that is one thing that we find. I will tell you something more about this guy over here. I'll explain something a bit more to you. Then, of course, I told you that the last column, yes, is SSA, special somatic afferent. And my friends, whenever we talk about special somatic afferent, I told that those ones with the nucleus should be the 8th nerve nucleus. And what are we talking about? We are talking about the vestibular nuclei and the cochlear nuclei. Yes, there are several of them over here. So that is, one thing that we find over here. Okay. Now, having seen these things, then I want to tell you something a bit more. Okay, those ones that I need to touch a bit more. Now, what are we talking about? I told you that one of the columns that we looked at was general visceral efferent. Okay, so I've selected just a few of them just to tell you something about them. They are worth mentioning. This general visceral efferent is also known as the parasympathetic column. Why? Because the nuclei we find over there, they are from nerves, which giving rise to some nerves which we classify them as being parasympathetic nerves. Why? Because I told you about Adinga vespal nucleus, which will be moving along the cranial nerve, okay, the lower division of the cranial nerve 3, oculomotor nerve. Okay, that's the guy. Okay, it is supplying the sphincter pupillae and then the ciliaris muscle via a ganglion, and the ganglion, which of course, yes, it will have to relay in, is known as the ciliary ganglion. We will look at all these things later, but for now, just know that okay, this Adinga vespal, which is in the the midbrain, so that's the spelling Adinga vespal nucleus that we find over here. Yes, what nerve is it relaying in the ciliary ganglion? My friends, is the 3rd nerve. Okay, so that is one thing that you have to know. Now the next gland that I want you to know about is the the lacrimal gland, the submandibular gland, and of course the sublingual gland. Okay, but not only that, even the nasal mucosal glands, the palatine glands over there, they will all be coming through this one. And my friends, what nerve are they going through it? It is through the 7th nerve, relaying in what we call the sphenopalatine ganglion or the cerebropalatine ganglion. Okay, so that is one thing generally. Then the next one should be, of course, also coming from the 7th. Yes, I told you about the submandibular sublingual glands. Yes, through the same 7. Okay. And my friends, this time around, it will be relaying in what we call the submandibular ganglion. Okay, that is what we see. And then when I go to the 9th nerve, which will be supplying, okay, that's that parotid gland, okay, this time around through a ganglion, and that ganglion is the otic ganglion, is through this nerve, which is of course the 9th nerve. Okay, please get to understand these broader terms. And then of course the rest part of the body, by way of the thoracic and abdominal glands, smooth muscles and glands over there, they'll be taken care of by this nerve that we find over here, which is of course the vagus nerve. Now all these nerves, they are giving parasympathetic innervation to these structures, and that is why the column general visceral efferent is also known as the parasympathetic column. And my friends, this parasympathetic column will therefore tell us that what are the nerves which we describe them as parasympathetic nerves. Yes, it makes sense that we know it is the 3rd nerve, it is the 7th nerve, it is the 9th nerve, and of course it is the 10th nerve. Okay, and that is one thing I want you to know. If you have seen that, then one thing is that sometimes you ask the question that yes, what nerves, okay, are in what you call the parasympathetic outflow. So as far as the cranial nerves are concerned, the parasympathetic outflow is something we also call the cranial. Okay, the one over here, the cranial, and of course the one at the caudal region, sacral outflow. So if they ask you that what are the components of the craniosacral outflow, we are talking about the parasympathetic outflow, and the craniosacral outflow, the cranial portion we know is the 3rd nerve. the 7th nerve, the 9th nerve, and then the 10th nerve, which we've discussed already. Okay. Yes, if you want to know that, yes, we are looking at parasympathetic, then you know that the preganglionic neuron will be longer compared to that of the postganglionic neuron. So you can see that where it is relaying, okay, near the viscera, okay, or the smooth, muscle that is going to, or the gland is near it. The, postganglionic nerve fibers will be near it. Now the same thing that we find over here, as you can see at the caudal region, okay, the preganglionic neuron is longer, okay, than that of the postganglionic neuron. So it means the postganglionic neuron is very near the target structure, and that is why the sacral portion, okay, of these nerves over here will also form part of the parasympathetic outflow, and that's why I use the word craniosacral outflow. And whenever we talk about craniosacral outflow, the sacral portion is S2, S3, and S4. So by and large, if they ask you that, yes, what are the components of the craniosacral outflow or the parasympathetic outflow, then you go for, of course, the cranial nerve 3, nerve 7, nerve 9, and of course the 10th, alongside S2, S3, and of course S4. So please get to understand that. Now, if you've seen craniosacral outflow, then it makes sense. Then you should also know about the thoracolumbar outflow. And whenever we talk about thoracolumbar outflow, it's exactly opposite. This one is not parasympathetic; it is rather sympathetic, and that is why those ones, they are short. Preganglionic neurons, yes, will be relaying in what we call the sympathetic ganglia, okay, in that chain over there in the thoracolumbar region. Okay, and then they will have very long postganglionic, neurons. Okay, so that's what is happening, going to the target, structure. And my friends, those ones, they are in the thoracic and lumbar region. And what nerves precisely will form this thoracolumbar outflow? It is from T1, everything about the thoracic nerves, okay, T1 all the way to the 1st and 2nd lumbar nerves. So T1 to L2 nerves will form the thoracolumbar outflow. So these are some questions that you can be asked. So my friends, you got to understand all these things very well. Now my friends, I told you something again, that we had a column in the SVE, the SVE, which was special visceral efferent. Okay, that was the column that I mentioned. And whenever I told you about special visceral, then one thing that should come into mind is, of course, the branchial, arches. And whenever you look at branchial arches, what are the muscles which are derived from branchial arches? That's what I told you about that one. Now I told you that there was a single nucleus over there, okay, in, of course, the medulla oblongata. There was a single nucleus over there, and that nucleus was taking care of, the 9th, the 10th, and of course the 11th. And we are surprising why the 11th should be present, because at the end of the day, when I told you about the branchial arches, okay, I told you about the mandibular nerve, okay, the 3rd division of the trigeminal nerve. I told you about the facial nerve, cranial nerve 7. I told you about the glossopharyngeal nerve, cranial nerve 9. I told you about the vagus nerve by way of the superior laryngeal and recurrent laryngeal. Yes, I told you about that. Those were cranial 10, up to cranial 10. Then why is it that cranial nerve 11, which is the accessory nerve, why should it be part of it?